Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Reading the skill, Shiro couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Immediately, there were a few key figures that she had in mind, and they were Keiko, Kiyomi, and Aram. Aram because her control skills were extremely useful and gravity magic was quite a rare find. As for Keiko and Kiyomi, they were good choices since they're the most powerful people in the group of people she knew. Since she'll be going to free Yuki soon, she'll need as much muscle power as she could get. Shiro, are you alright? Lyrica called out as she noticed that Shiro seemed to be daydreaming. Emin? Oh, it's nothing. Just looking at a new skill I got. Shiro replied with a smile. Oh, what kind of skill? Aram asked as her interests were piqued. Since Shiro was a monster and a race queen, she was quite curious as to what kind of skill she could get. Well, you see, the skill is called Celestial Court Appointment, and it allows me to hire/appoint people as part of my Celestial Court. I will get more slots in the future, but right now, I can appoint 3 of you. Once you're appointed, you can get a passive bonus that is linked to your class. Think of it as extra benefits. Shiro explained with a smile. So you can choose 3 people right now and more in the future. So who's on your mind right now? Aram asked. Well, I'm planning on giving Keiko and Kiyomi a slot since I'll be needing their help soon. As for the last one, I'm thinking that I should give it to you, Aram. Since you're a control mage, one that can use gravity as well, your improvement will definitely help the team massively. Shiro replied with a smile. Me? Are you sure you don't want to give it to Sylvie? Since she's a healer, won't she take priority? Aram raised her eyebrows. Yes and no. Yes, because as you said, she is a healer. As for why I said no, it's because her healing is already outstanding. There's no need to upgrade it further for now, since the impact it would have on the party would be quite small at her current stage. The same goes for the rest of the party. However, since you're a control mage, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, as any upgrade would give the party massive benefits. Shiro explained. I see. Is everyone okay with that? Aram asked the party. Oh, of course. We're doing fine, so having more control on the team would be quite helpful. Lyrica nodded with a smile. Yup. Like Lyrica said, if you can control the battlefield more, I wouldn't need to worry about tanking as many blows as I need to, and Sylvie wouldn't need to keep healing me. Madison grinned and gave Aram a thumbs up. Seeing that the rest of the party agreed with this decision, Aram could only shake her head softly and smile. In that case, then how do we do this? Aram asked as Shiro paused for a moment. Alright, how do I do this? She muttered since she had been trying to use the skills by herself without the help of the system if possible. Glancing towards the system, she activated the skill as a flood of knowledge entered her mind, enlightening her on how she should use this skill. Memorizing what she could do, Shiro gestured for Aram to stand in front of her. Seeing that Aram followed her instructions, Shiro raised her hand up as mana surged towards her palm. Swiping it down, a staff of sorts was formed in her hands as a pulse of golden energy exploded out. Aram, on my authority as the Celestial Sylph Empress, do you accept a role in my court? Do note that once this is done, the role cannot be revoked. Shiro asked as she had a soft smile on her face. I do. Aram nodded. Seeing that Aram had agreed, Shiro slammed the pommel of her staff down as a tier 4 magic circle erupted out from under their feet. Acknowledgement received. Generating role. Celestial Court Mage. Celestial Court Mage. The person given this role will receive the following benefits. Plus 10% of Empress INT stat. Plus 20% mana regeneration. Plus 20% armor/magic penetration. Plus 20% efficiency when using spells. As a Celestial Court Mage, you are more likely to receive inspiration when you are making new spells. Seeing the description of the role, Shiro couldn't help but focus in on the final line. You are more likely to receive inspiration when you are making new spells, huh? Seems like it fits Aram quite well considering the fact that she likes to research quite a bit. Shiro mused to herself while Aram stood in silence. Looking at her stats, she watched the extra bracket next to her INT stat and realized that 10 times that amount is how many points Shiro had in a single stat. Shiro, Aram called out hesitantly. Sup? Tell me, could it be that your INT stat is worth 385,000 points? Aram asked as she had received a bonus of 38.5k points in her stats. Emin? Yeah. Is something wrong? Shiro tilted her head since it was quite normal for monsters to have high INT stats, especially if they're more magic-related. Just asking, but how much mana do you have now with 385k points in your INT? Well, if I factor in all of my passive stacks and armor, I have a total of 128 million points worth of Northern Mariana Islands. Shiro replied, PFTTKT, and you can use all of that with your mana links fixed? Aram widened her eyes. Yup. I mean, is it really that much of a shock? I am literally carving holes in the dungeon every time we clear this. Shiro replied, URG true. Sorry, I just forgot how unfair monster stats are. Aram sighed. Not to burst your bubble, but I haven't been working on my monster passive too much since it requires me to kill humans. The humans I kill in trials don't count, so if I go on a genocide in the real world, I think I can increase my MP even more. Shiro replied with a soft chuckle. Yikes, that is not an image I would like to think about. Shiro on a warpath? Aram shrugged as the party couldn't help but agree. If Shiro really did focus on her monster stat to capitalize on the amount of MP she could get, she would have long reached the 100 million MP threshold since they had seen monsters with that much MP back in Varisha. Anyways, enough about my MP stat. It's going to be night soon outside, so I suggest we rest up now. Do remember that the longer we stay in the dungeon, the faster you'll be burning your lifespan. While you are technically still 15 years old outside in the world, you are in reality a lot older due to your time in the dungeon. I'd say with the amount of time you spent inside the dungeon, you're probably around 18 to 20 in terms of age. Shiro smiled. And the fact that you're level 115 despite it not being a full year is still ridiculous, as ever. Lyrica chuckled since Shiro wasn't even a year old if you look at her age as a monster. We don't talk about my age, okay? Since technically, I've already lived through a lifetime if I include what Kuromi had gone through. Shiro chuckled while bringing her finger up to her lips and made a keep it a secret gesture. Wait, Mom, does that make you a granny? Since you've experienced life once. Een asked with a tilt of her head. Asterisk Poochie. Flickering next to Een, Shiro leaned down slowly and smiled at Een. Ho ho, look at me, darling. Am I not your beautiful and youthful mother? Where is this talk of granny coming from? Plus, I'm not even a year old yet. Shiro replied. Asterisk cough. Nowhere. I'm just spacing out a little. Een quickly corrected herself as the party looked away since it was quite suicidal calling Shiro granny. One would think that Een would have learned her lesson, but it turns out the gluttonous bird only had food and her little brother in mind. Knocking Een on the head gently, Shiro led the party out of the dungeon as they were going to rest up for the night. Depending on what happens, they either deal with the church or talk to Keiko and Kiyomi tomorrow. Leaving the dungeon, they made their way back to the hotel as Shiro bought a room for her and Addie. Nimue and Izul returned to her mana realm since they didn't need to spend more money that way. Of course, they asked for Addie to join them, but he only shook his head and clutched onto Shiro, which made her heart melt. Addie is just too cute. Shiro smiled while lifting Addie up. If you know he's so cute, then why don't you share him around a little? Nimue pouted. Nope, Addie is all mine. Shiro laughed as Nimue only rolled her eyes. Mom, can I stay in your room as well? Een asked as she wanted to spend more time with Addie. Sure, I don't see why not, but I only have one bed, you know? Shiro nodded. It's okay, I'm still a mini you after all. I'm sure I can fit on the bed. Een nodded as Shiro's smile twitched for a moment, but didn't say anything. After all, Een wasn't wrong. She still looked like a lowly version of her. Despite being B-class now, Yin's appearance had not changed much except for the fact that her appetite had clearly increased. Though, I suppose she's matured a little since she decided to share with Addie. Shiro thought with a smile. In that case then Lisa, want to join me in my room as well? I did get a big bed, so I think it can fit all of us. Shiro suggested with a smile since they were a family. I'm sure. Lysandra nodded her head. Oh, before that, can I go get some food from the canteen? I did share a bunch of my food with Addie, so I'm still hungry. Een asked as Shiro tilted her head. When are you not hungry? Hearing Shiro's question, the party couldn't help but snicker a little since that was indeed the truth. There hadn't been a time where Een wasn't hungry as her passive skill makes it, so that she could just keep eating if she so wished. Fine, I know I'm a glutton, okay? Een pouted in annoyance as Shiro chuckled and pinched her cheeks. I was just asking a question, haha. I never said you can't get some food now, did I? Shiro winked as Yin's eyes brightened in an instant. Just make sure you don't eat out for too long and don't piss off anyone important. It would be quite annoying to deal with them after all. Thanks, Mom. Yin smiled and hugged Shiro before running towards where the cafeteria is. Shaking her head softly, Shiro looked towards Lysandra. Do you want to join your sister? Shiro asked as Lysandra shook her head. Nah, Big Sis has been out alone enough times to know what she can and can't do. Lysandra replied. I see. Anyways, let's go back to our rooms first. Wait, does Ian know which room we're in? Shiro asked since Ian was just playing around with Addie when they got their room numbers. If you want, I can go look after her. Sylvie volunteered. Are you sure? I mean, I don't want Ian to get in the way of your lovey-dovey time with Lil Chun. Shiro grinned as Sylvia blushed lightly. Cough, it's fine, isn't it, darling? Sylvia asked as she turned over to Chunyu. MN, of course. Chunyu nodded with a smile. In that case, then I'll be troubling you. Shiro nodded her head as Sylvia jogged to the cafeteria. Anyways, shall we go to our rooms now? Shiro asked. MN, sure. By the way, Shiro, I can't help but notice you've become more of a mother now, huh? Madison raised her eyebrows. Well, I'm technically a mother of 3 now despite never having a partner. I'm pretty sure I'm a better mother than I am a girlfriend at this point, haha. Shiro joked. The fact that it's probably true doesn't help your case now, does it? Madison chuckled. Not really. Honestly, I won't be surprised if I started to adopt more kids in the future. I've already got 3 in less than a year after all. True. As they chatted to each other, they made their way through the hotel and found their rooms. Shiro's room was on the floor above them, so she took Addie and Lysandra up while giving the rest of the party a wave. Arriving in front of her room, she scanned the key card that she was given and opened the door. Setting Addie on the bed, Shiro took off her jacket and put it in her inventory. Lisa, do you want to go for a shower first, or should I go? Shiro asked while turning on the TV to look for some interesting news. You can go first if you want, Mom. Lysandra replied. In that case then sure. You can play around with Addie in the meantime. Oh, before that though, here, take this notebook. I've detailed some ways you can improve your sword mastery after watching you fight today. You can read it while playing with your brother. Shiro said while giving her a notebook. Thanks, Mom. Lysandra nodded with a happy smile. Seeing this, Shiro patted her head lightly before walking over to the shower. Grabbing a towel, she undressed herself before going into the shower. Standing in the shower and allowing the water to splash onto her, Shiro couldn't help but muse to herself about what had happened with Duan Han-in. From the memories she inherited from Kuromi, they were the best of friends for a while. However, things changed all of a sudden and he became cold. Whenever he saw her, his face would scowl with disgust and fear before hiding it quickly. Kuromi didn't say much, but she definitely noticed. It wasn't long after this change that Kuromi was killed in secret and had her mana links completely shattered. Remembering the scene of Kuromi being tortured moments before her death, Shiro narrowed her eyes in anger as killing intent radiated off her body. She could still see Kuromi's pained face as she tried her best not to scream from the feeling of her links being snapped one by one. Quickly shaking her head, she dismissed those thoughts since her killing intent had accidentally frozen the shower. Thawing the ice, she quickly cleaned herself up before wrapping herself in a towel. The key thing I need to note is Duan Han-yin's sudden change in attitude. It's almost as if he was possessed by a ghost or something. Kind of like what happened with me and Kuromi. Shiro thought to herself. Do you think there's a chance that he was killed in secret and someone reincarnated into his body? Nimue suggested. I'm not too sure. After all, unlike me, he didn't need to restart his level and he was still human. He also had all of his memories. Shiro shook her head. While there are still quite a few mysteries in regards to your situation with the whole split soul and all that, we also don't know why you reincarnated either. Nimue sighed. True. Questions for later, I suppose. Shiro shrugged before leaving the shower. Lisa, you can go in now. She called out while drying her hair with her wind element. MN, sure. Lysandra nodded as she closed the notebook and set it aside. Seeing Addie sitting on the bed obediently, Shiro wondered what he was looking at and saw that he was fixated on the TV. Glancing over at the TV, Shiro saw that the current program was a cartoon of sorts that had people fighting against monsters. Well, despite his intelligence, I suppose he is still a child. Shiro thought with a smile and allowed him to keep watching. Once her hair was dried, she put up an illusion before changing into a simple one-piece dress. But before she could even relax, she felt a surge of mana that resembled Yin's. Oh, for F***'s sake. Really? I can't even relax after a bath. She frowned before standing up. Lisa, seems like Yin's in some kind of trouble. I'm going down right now. Addie will stay in the room with you, okay? Shiro called out. Got it, Mom. Lysandra replied. Nodding her head, Shiro jumped into the rift and made a beeline towards where Ian was. Hopefully, it wasn't too serious or else it'll be annoying to deal with. A few moments earlier, Ian and Sylvia were eating in the cafeteria happily. Say, Sylvie, don't you think Mum has gotten a lot kinder now that she has little bro? Ian asked with a happy smile. Perhaps. She did also spend time with Miss Kuromi, so maybe she matured after experiencing having a big sister. Sylvia smiled while ordering some more food for Ian. Amen. Though speaking of little bro, don't you think he's just the cutest? Ian asked with happiness in her voice. Seems like you really like him. Sylvia chuckled. I do. Because out of everyone here, I'm the smallest. Even after entering B class, I'm still like a mini version of Mom. However, now that little bro is here, he's smaller than me and I can pamper him properly. Ian replied while eating some food. But don't you have your little sister Lisa? That's different since Lisa is bigger than me. While I am the big sis, it's kind of odd for me to pamper her. Ian tilted her head. Well, size doesn't matter. Maybe Lisa also needs some pampering from her big sis every now and again. Remember, while you are the smallest out of our group, excluding Addie, you are Shiro's eldest daughter. Sylvia reminded with a smile. And since you're the oldest daughter, you have to set an example. So even though Lisa is bigger than you can still pamper her. I see. Okay, I'll make sure to give her some food later too. Ian smiled. Haha. Ian, pampering doesn't mean giving them food. It means giving them some attention and love. Sylvia chuckled at Yin's response. I mean, I value food over most things except for Mum and you lot. So if I give Addie and Lisa my favorite food, doesn't it tell them that they're more important than food is to me? Ian tilted her head. I suppose that's one way to put it. Sylvia nodded her head since her logic was technically correct. For Ian, who loved food ever since she was a little bird, giving someone else her food was quite a large sign of recognition. While they were talking to each other, a party sitting on a nearby table watched as the amount of food Ian ate continued to increase. Boy, don't you think she's overdoing it a bit? One of the members asked. Amen. She must be loaded to be able to afford all of that food. Another member nodded his head. One of the younger members couldn't help but feel annoyed at Yin's actions of overeating since he had struggled for food ever since he was small. Getting a loaf of bread would be a miracle, never mind a huge feast such as the one Ian was eating all by herself right now. Don't think about it, Samuel. Everyone onto themselves. If she has the money to pay for all of this food, then it is her problem, not ours. A man shook his head. He was the leader of their party and he knew that the boy in front of him was rather delicate when it comes to food. Whenever he sees someone wasting food or overeating, he would feel compelled to correct their actions. After all, despite the fact that they can now earn money easily due to the dungeons, food was now very expensive. And the more unfortunate kids had to risk their lives day in day out in the dungeons just to afford a small meal. But no buts. Samuel, did you forget about how much trouble you had caused us with this habit of yours? I'm not saying it's bad, but rather than forcing your ideals on others, wouldn't it be better for you to put more effort in and help the people in need yourself? Dominic replied with a sigh. CK? You know I can't save everyone, so the best I can do is try to remind those I can see. Samuel raged since he knew that trying to save everyone would be useless. There were simply too many to keep his eye on. You can do it if you want, but just keep the party out of this. From what I know, that girl seemed to have connections to the angel that the church is trying to recruit or something. Don't piss her off too much and stick with a reminder, okay? Dominic waved his hand lazily. Fine. Samuel nodded and stood up. Walking over to Ian, he was about to call out to her when he saw her order some more food. Excuse me, miss. He called out after taking a moment to calm himself. Emin, what do you want? Een turned around and had an uninterested expression on her face. She wasn't exactly happy about having her food time being interrupted by someone she didn't know. I just want to tell you that you shouldn't overeat if you're already full. There are tons of people out there who are starving, Samuel said while gesturing to the sheer amount of empty plates that was still on the table despite the waitress taking some away. Huh? What does me overeating have to do with someone who's starving across the world? Does me not eating magically give them food? Een replied with annoyance since she worked hard to get this food herself. Shiro hadn't given her any pocket money, so all that she was using to buy all this was her share of the earnings made from the dungeon runs. Who does this ridiculous guy think he is? Even if I stop eating now, it doesn't mean the restaurant will stop selling food. Een thought to herself. Well, it doesn't, but it's the thought that counts. Samuel frowned. In that case, then I hope that they are able to get some food, okay? Are you happy now? Een rolled her eyes before focusing back on her food. Before Samuel could rage, Sylvia called out to him. Please don't make a scene that may disturb others. Each to their own, okay? Een here has a passive skill making it, so that she's never full, she said, trying to pacify the situation. That's no excuse for her to be wasting food like this and overeating. If she can't feel full, then she shouldn't even bother trying to eat this much. Eating enough to get through the day should be fine. Samuel replied seriously. Listen here, you little *T. I, for one, treasure food and don't waste it. What I eat is what I earned. I don't need some dumb *CK coming up to me and telling me to think about the millions of people I don't even know nor give a *T about. Sure, it's sad, but what does me not eating do for them all? Een stood up in a rage since the fact that this idiot had the audacity to say that she was wasting food. To her, Een, food was glorious, and as long as you eat everything, none of it is wasted. You dash. Gritting his teeth, Samuel didn't expect this girl to react so explosively, as he could feel his own rage take over him. I'm saying you shouldn't eat so much, you greedy idiot. He shouted back as his mana started to flare in accordance to his emotions. *CK sake. *T's going to get messy. Both Dominic and Sylvia thought at the same time and stood up. Seeing that he was clearly wanting to pick a fight with her over the value of food, Een didn't back down and flared her own mana. What? You want to pick a fight with me? Een taunted since she wasn't afraid to fight someone. Before things could get out of hand, a heavy pressure descended into the area as a portal of sorts opened up in the ceiling. Een, what's going on? Shiro called out with a frown. Landing gently on the ground, she snapped her fingers as a wave of mana pulsed out, dispelling their auras and any spells they had prepared. Seeing a white-haired beauty that wore a simple one-piece dress appear out of nowhere and pacify the situation in such a forceful way, Dominic knew that this woman was not to be underestimated. Feeling her oppressive aura closely, Samuel felt sweat drip down his head as he could not even speak. Shiro, Sylvia called out as she stood up. Amen. You see, Een and this boy here had a small disagreement about her eating habits, and things got a bit heated. Sylvia explained with an apologetic smile. *Sigh. Oh, for God's sake. I wasn't even able to lay on the bed after a shower to rush here in case of danger, and it turns out it's because of Yin's habits? Shiro massaged her eyes. Unfortunately, yes. If you don't mind me interfering, it's mostly my party member's fault. He's just rather delicate with topics in regards to food. Dominic called out apologetically as Shiro glanced over at his direction. The man had unkempt black hair and wore a rather plain set of clothes that consisted of a long black trench coat, a gray shirt, and some black pants. Dominic, LVL 130 Dragon Master. Dragon Master? That's a rather interesting sounding class now, isn't it? Shiro mused to herself. Indeed, but I think what we should be doing now is resolving the small conflict first. Nimue nodded. Amen. So you're saying it's your party member's fault for being nosy in my daughter's eating habits? Shiro raised her eyebrows. A little, however. I would also like to say that your daughter did act rather explosively, since my party member just wanted to give her a reminder. Dominic replied with a chuckle. Oh, seems to me like you're saying I should apologize as well, Shiro said as she narrowed her eyes. From what she knew so far, Een had been minding her own business eating with Sylvia, and this boy was being nosy. So to her, It made absolutely no sense for Ian to apologize when it was clearly the other party that was the one who instigated it. If they had just ignored and left quietly, things would not have developed to this point. A deafening silence filled the room as both Shiro and Dominic had to stare off. Neither one wanted to back down. For Shiro, Ian was her daughter, so it's natural that she'll stick up for her. Plus, it was also the other party's fault for being nosy. As for Dominic, he stood up for Samuel since it was just a small reminder that turned hostile after Yin's response. Continuing this for a few more moments, Shiro could sense that a few guards were coming and things would get rather annoying if they were involved. You better watch your party member closely. If he's too nosy, he'll get himself killed in the future, Shiro warned before waving her hand. A rift opened up beneath Ian and Sylvia as she teleported away with the two of them. The moment Shiro disappeared, Dominic sighed out in relief as sweat had covered his back. During that short stare off, he felt like he was being glared at by an apex predator. A single wrong move would mean his death, but he had to stand his ground for Samuel. Dash. Don't worry about it. Like I said, you should keep that habit of yours in check. If I didn't know better, I'd say that if we actually fought with that woman there, we would have all died without a corpse. Dominic sighed. But isn't she just a level 101? You're 29 levels above her. Samuel frowned. Idiot, do you not think that she can use the disguise skill? I tried to see past the disguise, but it seems like her skill must be pretty high ranked since it didn't budge. All I know is that her aura did not belong to a level 101. If anything, I'd say she's near the 200s or maybe higher. Dominic shook his head. 200. Samuel widened his eyes since people in the A class were simply monsters amongst men. A single wave of their hand could obliterate a city, never mind a small party like theirs. Man, I think I'll need a smoke after that. Anyways, just try not to make too big of a fuss. We got important matters to attend to after all. Dominic waved his hand as he pulled out a cigarette and walked out of the hotel. ####. Returning to their room, Shiro planted her face against the bed and sighed. Ian, I thought I told you not to cause trouble, Shiro said as Addie started to pat Shiro's head after seeing her so worn out. But I didn't though. He just approached me and started to lecture me about my eating habits. Ian pouted. To be fair, Shiro, he was kind of pushy with his ideals. Sylvia followed up. I know. But if a fight had erupted out back there, a bunch of people might have died, you know? Not by my hands, but through his. Shiro replied with narrowed eyes and produced a photograph. In the photograph, they could clearly see a giant black dragon hovering over the clouds while looking down at their hotel. During the stare-off, she had felt the presence of a giant monster just above the city, so she deployed a nanotech drone just to scout out the situation. Seeing that it was a dragon, she knew that his class of Dragon Master was not for looks. While she could have killed him, a bunch of people might have died from the dragon's ensuing attack. Wait. *T. He had a B***starred reptile with him. Ian widened her eyes in annoyance since she never liked dragons to begin with. Reptiles should just crawl on the ground. When the F***CK did they have the audacity to fly in the air with a bird like her? Have they ever seen a flightless bird? Actually, isn't a chicken a flightless bird? Ian wondered to herself. F***CK. Don't fight him in the city. If you want to fight a dragon, find one that doesn't have an owner or something. Shiro waved her hand lazily since she was too tired for this **T. Anyways, Sylvia, thank you for your help, she said while sitting up straight. Don't worry about it. It was just unlucky for Ian to run into a guy like him. If there's nothing else, I'll go back to my room now. Sylvia smiled. Oh, speaking of which, do you and Chunyu have the same room? Shiro asked with a grin. Cough. Maybe. Sylvia blushed. Ho ho. In that case, then does he treat you well? Surely you haven't done the deed now, have you? I wonder if I'll see some mini Sylvies in 9 months' time. Shiro chuckled. We haven't gone that far yet. Sylvia looked down embarrassingly. Who the hell talks about this with her 3 children present? Even Lysandra, who had gotten out of the shower not too long ago, had a blush on her face while using the notebook to cover her face. As for Ian, well, her IQ isn't high enough for her to understand talks of romance. She was more occupied with sticking a middle finger to the sky in order to piss off the dragon. Oh, did I just hear it yet? Does that mean you've reached second base? Shiro asked once more. Hearing the mention of second base, Sylvia blushed harder as she knew the meaning and couldn't help but nod her head slowly. Seeing the confirmation, Shiro grinned and gave her a thumbs up. Make sure you keep a good leash on him, okay? If B** starred Tion tries to get him back, I'll tell him Chinyu is my friend's man now, okay? Shiro laughed since she's technically borrowing Chinyu from Nantion. Their partnership should have ended back in the Elven country, but due to his relationship with Sylvia, he stuck around with the party. I heard Shin talk about Nantion a few times and said that he was his boss and that you two had a rather complicated relationship. Sylvia asked. Complicated is a rather adept description. I met him way back in New York, where he discovered my identity as a snow girl. He even helped me deal with the Shadow Stalker. Shiro chuckled. Shadow Stalker? Sylvia raised her eyebrows. Yup. Though in return, I got a gentlemanly stalker instead, haha. To be fair though, I did receive quite a bit of help from him. He's the one who provided me with a few of the rebirth pills that I previously needed. Shiro laughed as Sylvia couldn't help but feel sweat roll down the side of her face. I don't think you should be this happy for a stalker. As the duo continued to talk about Chinyu and Nantion, Shiro told Sylvia everything she knew about Nantion and the hidden sect. After all, her boyfriend belonged to the sect, so it was only natural that she knew. I see. I'll ask Chin about it tonight and tell you if there's some new information about the sect then. Sylvia nodded as she was going to use pillow talk to get some information. Of course, she wasn't going to go to the third base yet in order to use the pillow talk. That can be saved for later. Amen. It's pretty late now, so you should head back and get some rest. Shiro nodded as she bid her farewell. ####. Somewhere else in the city of Epona, a man was sitting on the edge of the tallest building in the city and looked up into the sky. It doesn't seem like the dragon's going to do anything, he muttered before looking towards the hotel building that Shiro was in. I wonder if Little Snow would be happy to find out that I've dealt with most things now so that I can accompany her a bit. Probably not, haha. He chuckled before disappearing from his spot. Waking up early in the morning, Shiro looked to her side and saw that Addie and Ian were still sleeping peacefully. Lysandra had already woken up and was currently doing some stretches in the room. Good morning, Lysandra whispered as Shiro yawned before nodding. Getting off the bed carefully so that she didn't wake up Addie nor Ian, Shiro went to the toilet and had a quick shower. When she came back, she changed into a simple white tank top, black mini shorts, a pair of black tights, and some boots. Tying up her hair into that of a ponytail, Shiro looked in the mirror and nodded her head with satisfaction. This should look casual enough, she mused to herself before leaving the toilets. Turning towards Shiro, Lysandra was rather surprised at her appearance before giving her a thumbs up. Looking good, Mom, she praised. Of course, I always look good. Shiro grinned as she looked out the window and saw that the sun was rising. I'll set a camera down here so that I'll be notified when your brother and sister wake up. For now, though, do you want to go grab something to eat and see if the rest of the party is awake? She asked. Sure. Flexing her fingers, Shiro created a small camera before placing it on the table. Once she was sure that everything was set up, she left the room with Lysandra and made their way downstairs, where the rest of the party rested. Once she went downstairs, she saw that everyone was up, so they decided to have breakfast together. How was your rest? Shiro asked with a smile. It was good. Though Sylvia said something about Ian having a fight with someone. What happened? Lyrica asked. Oh, it's just a small argument between two kids. We were able to resolve it before anything major occurred. Shiro shrugged as Lyrica nodded. Anyways, what's with this outfit? It's quite casual, for a lack of a better word. Lyrica asked curiously. Well, I just felt like wearing something a little different today. What do you think? Shiro chuckled. It looks good on you. Lyrica nodded. Not gonna lie, with you looking like this, no one would think that you're a mother of 3. Madison smiled. Of course not. Hate to break it to you, but this lady here is still a virgin, okay? Do I look like I've given birth? Shiro rolled her eyes. Nope. To be fair, I can't imagine you being all gentle in bed as you talk to your future lover. Madison laughed as Shiro's expression darkened. Oi, I'm still a maiden, okay? Why can't this lady act gentle? Shiro furrowed her brows in annoyance. Then can you imagine yourself saying this? Darling, why don't you carry me to bed and show me a good time? Madison grinned as Shiro immediately felt goosebumps. F***CK? Okay, fine, maybe not that gentle. God, I'm about to throw up. Shiro shivered. Haha, see? I told you. Madison laughed. Listening to this, Lyrica couldn't help but imagine that scene, but with her and Shiro. Quickly tilting her head back, Lyrica avoided having a nosebleed since it was still early in the morning. Too stimulating. She thought to herself. Are you alright? Shiro asked as she watched Lyrica tilt her head back. In. Yeah, I just suddenly found the ceiling very interesting. Lyrica replied. The F***CK? When was the ceiling interesting? Shiro raised her eyebrows while looking up at the ceiling to see what was so interesting. There was nothing. Talking to the rest of the party while they walked, they soon arrived at the cafeteria. Upon arrival, they saw it was rather empty as there were only a few people around. However, when Chunyu laid his eyes on one of the people around, he couldn't help but find them quite familiar. Wait a minute, he muttered while narrowing his eyes slightly. Noticing this behavior, Sylvia tilted her head. Is there anything wrong? She asked curiously. I think I know. Holy sh**t. He widened his eyes in shock. Hearing Chunyu suddenly curse out loud, Shiro was also curious and glanced towards what he was looking at. Seeing the familiar figure of a man sitting by one of the tables with his mask on as always, she realized that the esteemed branch master had actually come to visit her. URG. She sighed before massaging her eyes. Shiro. Sylvia was even more confused when she saw Shiro suddenly sighed, as if trouble had just arrived at her doorstep. Give me a moment, Shiro said before walking up to the table and sitting opposite him. So what brings the esteemed branch master to this city? If I recall things correctly, you said you were going to accompany me, but decided to stop since some matters came up. Shiro said with a smile, as Nantion chuckled. Sounds to me like you missed me, little Snow. Though I suppose that nickname is rather old now considering that you're an empress now. Nantion smiled. Missed you? Oh please, I was just surprised at the lack of a stalker and couldn't be happier. However, it seems like both stalkers had suddenly re-entered my life. Both you and the shadow stalker. Shiro rolled her eyes. She wasn't too surprised at the fact that he now knew that she was an empress since her disguise did F***ck all when she was in front of this man. So you've met with him earlier? Not really earlier, since the last time I talked to him was back, when there was an event in Varisha. Shiro shrugged. Is that so? Well, if you want, I can tell you about some information I gathered about him during my time away. It's quite interesting if you asked me. And also, it seems like your friend has Chunyu wrapped around her fingers. Nantion smiled while gesturing towards Chunyu and Sylvia. Well, let's just say Sylvie and Lil Chun have been quite intimate with each other. I don't think he wants to go back with you anytime soon. Shiro narrowed her eyes as Chunyu's breath halted from shock. F***ck my life. Empress Shiro, don't drag me into this and piss off the branch master, okay? My life will be shortened by a few decades. He cried out in his mind, but didn't dare to voice out his complaints. After all, on one side was the empress and the other was the devil. Offending either one of them out spelled death for him. Haha, don't worry. I don't like to force my subordinate dash. Bullsh**t. Shiro retorted instantly with a roll of her eyes. But when did I force you to do anything? Nantion tilted his head in confusion. Never, but didn't you force yourself into my life? Shiro said with a deadpan expression. Cough. Well, there's no point dwelling in the past now, is there? Just know that if Chunyu wants to stay with you, that's fine. I've been getting some other people to do the work I need. As long as he's not making trouble for you, it's okay. Nantion smiled. Anyways, enough about that. Why are you here today? Shiro asked. What? Can't I visit you when I'm finally free? You know, I did promise that I'll go on a few adventures with you now, didn't I? Oh please, we both know you aren't idle enough to actually accompany me, right? Just get to the point already. You know I don't like to beat around the bush. Shiro shrugged. Fine, I'll give you a break now, Empress. Nantion chuckled. First, I wasn't kidding when I said I wanted to accompany you. I have finished most of the emergency business that happened at the sect, so I'm pretty free right now. After all, the elders owe me quite a large holiday. Second, I'm rather interested in the fact that you now have an angel with you and have even garnered the attention of the church. However, the most important thing I want to tell you is that I finally figured out when you felt so familiar for me when we first met. Nantion smiled as he looked down at the table. You found me familiar? Shiro raised her eyebrow since she did have a nagging feeling that she knew the man, but regardless of how much she looked through Kuromi's memories, she didn't find anything related to him. Min, let's just say I only realized after finding out that you're currently using the body of Miss Kuromi. Nantion shook his head before reaching for his mask. Pulling it down, he exposed his face for Shiro to see. Holy sh*t, it's you. Shiro cried out in shock since her mind immediately locked onto a memory she had as Kuromi. The man in front of her had pure golden eyes, black hair, sharp features, and a charming smile. However, there was something about his golden eyes that struck a memory deep in Shiro's consciousness as she remembers seeing these eyes when she was younger as Kuromi. Seems like you've remembered me. Nantion raised his eyebrows in surprise since Shiro was currently inhibiting Kuromi's body in his mind and shouldn't have her memories. Of course I did. I got my memories back okay? But *ck? Little beggar, you've really changed, huh? Shiro asked in disbelief. *pfttt. Hearing Shiro call his branch master little beggar, Shinyu couldn't help but freeze up in shock. What did she just call branch master? Haha, you've even remembered my nickname. Nantion rubbed the bridge of his nose with embarrassment. Min, but little beggar, why did you become a stalker, ah? Didn't I teach you to be better? Shiro tilted her head. You did, but the elders at the sect kept telling me that I should try to charm women this way since they like it. Nantion replied. Ah, they married? No. Nantion shook his head. Do they have girlfriends, or had exes? No. He shook his head again. Then why the hell are you taking relationship advice from them? Shiro face-bombed. Well, they were the only ones around that could tell me. Nantion chuckled. He did try to ask some of the female seniors before he became the branch master, but it turns out that they liked him and didn't need him to make a move. Say, little beggar, if you realize that I'm me now, how did you not realize earlier? Shiro asked curiously. I had a few run-ins with those that looked familiar to you, so I was a bit cautious. Not only that, the sect master took me in for training, so I couldn't even go out to find you if I wanted. I had only finished my training recently when I went to New York and found you. Nantion replied as Shiro nodded her head. Speaking of which, what do you mean by my memories? I thought you were a monster that inhibited Kuromi's body. Nantion asked. Well, it's like this. Me and Kuromi are actually the same person in a way. It's during the recent trial that we kind of merged and I received her memories. Of course, I'm still the dominant personality. Shiro replied with a happy smile. Seeing this interaction, the party couldn't help but feel curious about the development while Lyrica felt alarm bells ring in her mind. Shiro, who is he? Lyrica called out as the party sat near them. Well, I was going to introduce him as the gentlemanly stalker, but it turns out that I knew him all along. His name is now Nantion, and as you heard, I knew him as Little Beggar before. Shiro said as she started to recount her time as Kuromi and how she had met Nantion when he was a little beggar. ###. In the Asakura mansion, a young girl was sparring against her parents. Sweat dripped off her face as the wooden sword in her hands trembled. Based on her appearance, it looked as though she was around 10 years of age. Her grip was loose due to the fatigue that she was feeling. Her father, the head of the Asakura family, looked at her with a soft smile. Kuro, even when you are tired, you must push past that fatigue and grip your sword as hard as you can. In a life and death fight, as long as you have your sword, it means you can still fight back. Imagine a fight against a bear. If it knocks the sword out of your hand, you can only rely on your physical strength. But if you have your sword, you can force the bear to plunge itself into the sword through careful footwork and make it kill itself. Her father, Asakura Koji, reminded her gently. Amen. I understand. Kuromi replied with a small stutter in her words. Dear, I think you should give Kuromi a break. She's still young. Her mother, Asakura Mio, called out from the corner of the training hall as she brought some refreshments. Very well. You've done well today. Koji smiled and patted Kuromi on her head. Hearing her father's praise, she smiled happily before dropped her sword and running over to her mother for the snacks. Giving her mother a hug, she quickly scoffed down the snacks while taking the occasional drink to prevent choking. Slow down. No one is going to take them from you, Mio said with a soft smile. I guess. Kuromi looked down at the snacks and nodded. These were her favorites, so she wanted to eat them as soon as she could. Thinking about it for a moment, She hesitantly grabbed one of the snacks and broke a small piece off. "For you, Dad," she said while handing him the small piece and quickly eating the big piece. Looking at this, Koji couldn't help but laugh as he took the small piece. "How kind, haha," he said while eating it. "I can only give you this much since there aren't too many left," Kuromi said while slowly nudging herself to cover the rest of the snacks. "Oh, isn't there 3 more behind you?" Koji asked with a smile. Huh. Quickly turning around and eating 2 more, she grabbed her drink and swallowed it. "I see only one, and that's for Mommy," Kuromi replied while glancing to the side. "PFT, haha. Fine, I won't fight you for the food." Koji smiled before patting her on the head once more. After giving her mother the final snack, she was allowed to go around the mansion and do whatever she wanted for the rest of the day. Nodding her head, the girl was more than happy since this was a good chance for her to play around. What her parents didn't know was that she liked to sneak out of the mansion and roam the streets. Of course, that was only what she thought. Her parents naturally knew of this, but had guards looking after her so that their daughter could have fun. Sneaking out of the Asakura mansion through her usual route, she jogged towards the park that she had always played at. She had made a few friends there that didn't know about her identity as the young miss of the famous Asakura family, so she could play without any worries. Unfortunately, when she arrived, she was only met with annoyed glares. "What's wrong, guys?" Kuromi called out curiously. "Go away. Was it fun looking down on us just because you're rich?" A girl shouted out with a frown. What do you mean? I never looked down on you." Kuromi furrowed her brows. "Don't lie to us. Go away. We don't want to play with you anymore." "Liar," another boy shouted out as they all started to berate her for lying and tricking them. "Yeah, you're the princess of the Asakuras while we're just commoners. Was it fun?" As she was still a child, Kuromi didn't know why they were like this and thought that it was her fault. Balling her hands into a fist, she quickly ran away from the park since she didn't want to be called a liar. Running away, tears started to form around her eyes as she realized that she couldn't play with her friends anymore. Biting her lips, she tried her best not to cry. Sitting down on some crates in an alley, she hugged her legs and tried to stop her crying, but the tears kept coming. As the quiet sobs rang out, a rustling sound could be heard not too far from her. "Are you homeless too?" A young voice called out as Kuromi looked up. She could see a young boy with long black hair that reached his lower back. His clothes were ragged and dirt could be seen all over him. His bangs covered most of his face apart from his golden eyes that seemed to shimmer lighten even in this dark environment. "I'm not homeless." Kuromi shook her head and quickly wiped away her tears. "Then why are you crying?" The boy asked curiously while sitting down next to her. "My friends kept calling me a liar and said that I looked down on them." Kuromi replied sadly. "Well, did you lie and look down on them?" The boy tilted his head in confusion. "Of course not." Kuromi quickly waved her hands in denial. "Then I don't see the problem. Maybe they're the ones lying." The boy smiled as Kuromi paused. This was the first meeting between her and the little boy with no name. From then on, every time Kuromi sneaked out of the mansion, she would look for this boy to play around with. There were times where she saw him clutching his stomach from hunger and would help him get some food to eat. "So what's your name?" she asked during one of their play sessions. "I don't have one." The boy shook his head. You don't have one? What about your mom and dad then?" Kuromi raised her eyebrows in curiosity. "I don't know. I was raised in the streets." The boy smiled. "That's kind of sad. Do you want me to give you a name then?" Kuromi asked. I think it's okay with just a nickname. I heard that real names are given by parents or those that act like parents, so I want to save that for them." The boy shook his head. "What should I call you then?" "Well, I guess you can call me Little Beggar like everyone else." The boy suggested. "Little Beggar? Isn't that rude though?" Kuromi frowned. "Not really, since I don't mind." Fine. But if I call you Little Beggar, you call me Big Beggar then. Since I'm bigger than you, I can be your big sis." Kuromi grinned cheerfully. "I don't think I should call you Big Beggar. I'll just call you Big Sis instead if that's okay." "Sure, that's okay." Kuromi nodded her head. As the two continued to talk, the boy would learn more about the girl, how she was trained in the sword despite her reluctance. The two would always have a set time to meet each other since she had her breaks from training roughly at the same time. After a while, it became a habit for the boy to wait for her patiently. Kuromi would always be on time to meet the boy as they had become close friends. Of course, the boy would become curious about the girl's background and had asked during one of their sessions. To which she replied that she came from a normal family that was slightly better off in fear of losing a friend like what had happened long ago. This continued to winter as Kuromi wore a thick coat to ward off the cold. Getting a spare coat and hiding it under her clothes, she tried to sneak out of the mansion while looking like a giant snowball. When she arrived at the normal meeting spot, she was confused as to why she couldn't see the boy anywhere. "Little beggar," she called out. Hearing no response, she started to look around the area in hopes of finding him. However, there were no signs of him being around. Frowning slightly, Kuromi decided to sit by the crates and wait patiently for him to come back. Soon, snow started to fall as she quickly pulled up her hood and looked around once more. Seeing the snow, she couldn't help but wonder if the little beggar was cold right now. The best-case scenario would be that he found some shelter. Waiting till nightfall, Kuromi reluctantly stood up and placed the spare coat down before going back home. The next day, she quickly made her way back to the meeting spot after her break. Soon, joy filled her mind as she saw the little beggar wrapped in the spare coat that she had left out. But before she could call out his name, she realized that he looked extremely pale and knew that something was wrong. "Little beggar, are you okay?" she asked with concern. "Emin, while you're here. Sorry I couldn't meet you yesterday. The people around here needed someone to go with them to a dungeon." The boy apologized with a slightly forced smile. Why did you go to such a dangerous place? Didn't I tell you to be careful since you're still a child?" Kuromi frowned before scanning him up and down to check for any injuries. Seeing that he was clutching the coat tightly, she thought that he must be cold and decided to take her own coat off and handed it over to him. "You look cold, so you can have this," she offered. It's okay. I'm fine with just this one." The boy shook his head. "Then why are you trembling and holding it tightly? You must be cold. Don't be stubborn. I can get another coat from Mommy. Just take mine." Kuromi furrowed her brows and pushed the coat towards him. "Okay, fine." The boy nodded his head since he didn't want her to know the truth of the matter. Taking the second coat, he tried his best to wear it while not exposing his body under the coat. All Kuromi thought was that he must be so cold that moving the first coat out of the way would be painful. Give me a second. I'll go buy you some hot soup or a drink. That way, it can warm you up on the inside." Kuromi offered as the boy wanted to shake his head, but she had already left the alleyway. Sighing softly, he leaned against the wall while pressing his arm against his stomach. Once the girl came back with the hot drink, she saw the boy lying in a pool of his own blood as her face quickly paled. Blood," she cried out in shock while running next to him. "Aren't you cold? Why did you start bleeding?" she asked with shock. "Sorry, I was hit by one of the monsters in the dungeon." The boy apologized while trying to stop the bleeding. Gritting her teeth, Kuromi decided to take the boy back to her home to get him treated. While this may expose her habit of going outside, it was better than letting the little beggar die on the streets. Thankfully, due to her parents' training, her body was quite strong, so she could somewhat carry him with her. Taking him back to her home through the same path she used to escape, she quickly begged her father to heal him. "You know we're going to have a small talk after we heal him, right?" her father reminded her as Kuromi looked down. "Amen. I know." She nodded, understanding that she may be punished for sneaking out. Shaking his head lightly, Koji lifted the young boy off his daughter's back and produced a health potion. Feeding it to the boy, he brought the little beggar to a spare room. Once Kuromi was sure that the boy was fine, she sighed in relief before going to a separate room with her father. Naturally, the talk was mostly him berating her for sneaking out of the mansion, but it wasn't too harsh. It was more like a reminder instead of berating. However, this reminder was quite effective on Kuromi as she was feeling guilty for hiding her activities from her father, even though he already knew. "I'm sorry," was all she could say. "Amen. Once that boy is awake, you can escort him back to his home," Koji instructed. "But he doesn't have a home," she muttered while glancing up at her father. "The most we can do is help him every now and again, but we can't do this to everyone. There are a lot of poor people in the world that we can't see. If we save one, 10 more will appear, and if we save them, 100 more would follow. Do you understand? If anything, he'll have to get stronger himself so that he can stay safe in the outside world," Koji said with a soft smile. While saving people wasn't a bad habit, there was only so much a single person can do before it wears them out. He didn't want his daughter to be someone that constantly tires herself to help other people who may not even help her back. So if he becomes strong like you, he can live properly? Kuromi asked since she knew that strength was important. Amen. Koji nodded. Staying silent, Kuromi started to think of ways for the little beggar to get stronger. With how he is right now, going for swords was probably not the best choice since he was lacking physical strength. Remembering talks of magic from her parents, Kuromi decided to study magic in her spare time so that she could teach the little beggar, making it easier for him to survive. It was due to this incident that Kuromi decided to stray from the martial path of her family and choose to go with the mage's path. She was going to make sure she studied magic diligently so that she could pass on everything she knew to the little beggar. And that's why I decided to become a mage despite my family being one that was filled with warriors. Shiro explained as the party nodded their heads. So what happened after that, little beggar? If I remember correctly, after we both got our classes as mages, you disappeared not too long after. Do you know how worried I was? I thought UF** King died in the dungeon or something. She asked with a frown. Well, in one of the dungeon runs, I, unfortunately, caught the attention of a rather rude fellow who kidnapped me and took me away from the city. For the next few years or so, I was forced to work with this bandit group of sorts. It wasn't until the current sect master of the hidden sect found me was I able to escape from the group. From then on, he started to train me and I became the branch master. Unfortunately, I was not able to return to our city, and when I was finally allowed to leave, I found news of you going missing. Nantion explained while scratching his cheek. Damn, do you know who the bandit group is? I'ma go teach them a lesson for kidnapping little beggar. Shiro frowned. Cough. The bandit group is also known by the name of Black Monarchy. And also, can you not call me little beggar anymore? It's kind of embarrassing to be called little beggar when I'm the branch master. Nantion asked while rubbing the bridge of his nose. How, why not? Do you not like little beggar? Did you forget about the times we spent together with me calling you by that nickname over and over again? Shiro asked with a grin. Glancing to the side, Nantion didn't say anything and just smiled. Meanwhile, Chinyu couldn't believe what he was seeing. His branch master, one that most of the sect members feared, actually had a past where he was called little beggar. If the rest of the sect knew of this, Chinyu, any word of this in the sect, and you know what happens. Nantion narrowed his eyes while giving Chinyu a smile. I'll keep it a secret. Chinyu widened his eyes and replied in an instant. Oi, don't pick on my friends, man. Shiro frowned and smacked Nantion on the shoulder. Fine. Nantion nodded his head after a moment as Chinyu sighed in relief. Great Empress, I owe you my life. He cried out in his mind. He knew that as long as he stayed around Shiro's group with Sylvia, his life would be safe. By the way, what shall I call you now? Kuromi, Shiro, or Little Snow? Nantion asked. Little Snow, my ass. Do I still look like a lolia? Shiro frowned. Just call me Shiro or something. She shrugged. All right. In that case then, Shiro, can you tell me what exactly happened to you, or rather, Kuromi? Nantion nodded his head before asking with a serious expression. Sure, these girls here already know. Just know that me and Kuromi are technically two sides of the same coin. We're the same person in one sense. It wasn't too long ago did we merge, and I got her memories. As for how she died, it's by a guy named Duan Han-in. I don't know if you know him, but his attitude suddenly changed one day, and he became enemies with me. Shiro explained as Nantion furrowed his brows. Sorry, I don't have any recollection of a person named Duan Han-in. I'll have some of my people search for some information about him if you can tell me what he looks like. He replied. Give me a second. Shiro nodded before waving her hand. Suddenly, mist started to form in the air as Shiro activated her Fey illusions to make it look like Duan Han-in. The figure was that of a handsome man who looked like he was in his mid-20s. He had a set of refined features that made him look a little feminine in a good way. Long black hair that reached his back and a fire marking that extended from his right hand to his back. I see. Okay, I'll give my people a message now. Nantion nodded as he took a picture and sent it to his subordinates. Anyways, what are you planning to do in this city then? Shiro asked with a smile while dismissing the illusion. Me? Well, I guess I'll follow my initial plan and maybe stay with your group for a bit. He asked. Okay, but you're not allowed to help. okay? Shiro replied. That's fine. Nantion nodded his head since he was just happy that he could spend time with Kuromi again, or rather, Shiro. Welp, seems like we've got a spectator to our adventures now, huh? Madison raised her eyebrows. Oh, it'll be fine. If anything, I'll make sure Lil Tion behaves okay. Shiro smiled. Lil Tion. Nantion raised his eyebrows at the nickname. What? You don't like it? Should I keep with Bastard Tion then? Shiro grinned. Asterisk cough. Lil Tion would be fine. Nantion smiled in defeat. There we go, so obedient. Shiro laughed before standing up. I'll be right back. Seems like Addie's awake. She said as she disappeared from her spot. Who's Addie? Nantion asked the party. I'm not handing Shiro over to you. Lyrica called out as she immediately declared war against Nantion. Huh. Confused at the sudden declaration, Nantion couldn't help but tilt his head. PFT, since Shiro's not here, I don't see why we shouldn't say it since it's pretty obvious. You see, Lil Tion, Shiro has a few admirers, and one of them is our dear OL Lyrica here. Madison chuckled while gesturing towards Lyrica. Oh, I see. Well, cool. Shiro always had lots of admirers, even when she was younger. Lots of people wanted to be her husband after all. Nantion nodded his head. And I'm guessing that includes you? Aram asked as she crossed her arms with interest. Maybe. Nantion rubbed his nose since things were more obvious after he realized that Shiro was indeed the one that saved his life through teaching him magic. If it wasn't for this, he would have never been saved by the current sect master. Good luck, Lyrica. He has a strong childhood friend card on his side. Aram patted Lyrica's shoulder. URG. I'm back, what are you lot talking about now? Shiro called out as she jumped out of the portal with Addie in her arms and Ian following behind her. Oh, nothing too important. Just some personal interests. Nantion replied. I see. Well, as long as a feud doesn't appear between y'all, I'll be fine. Shiro nodded before ordering some food for everyone. Oh, by the way, Lil Tion, do you still like eating ramen? I remember that it used to be your favorite back when we were children. Shiro asked. A little. Nantion nodded. Back when he was a beggar, eating ramen was like going to heaven for him. However, now that he had access to better food, ramen wasn't on his menu anymore. In that case then, I'll order you some now. Shiro smiled and called for some ramen. Seeing that Chunyu was about to tell Shiro about the fact that he never ate ramen in the sect, Nantion quickly glared at him to stop him from telling the truth. This did not escape Shiro's notice as she quickly smacked him on the head lightly with her hand. What did I say about bullying Chunyu? Shiro frowned as Nantion apologized. Hee, Great Empress now has the branch master on a leash. Maybe I can bully the branch master now. Chunyu thought with himself with a chuckle. And you, Chunyu, don't slander your branch master randomly just because I'm here, okay? Or else I'll get Sylvia to make you sleep on the couch or something. I don't know what you couples do. Shiro glanced over at Chunyu. Asterisk cough. Nodding his head, Chunyu behaved himself. The dream of bullying the branch master was still so far away. Shiro, so who's Addie? Nantion asked while pointing at Atesh. Oh, him? He's my son. Asterisk PFT. Why your son? Nantion asked in surprise as he felt his heart puncture from the news. Even taking 1 million points of damage felt better than this. Yup, though he's not my biological son. In a nutshell, he's a sentient spirit formed from the fusion of 2 fires that I had obtained. Since he's so cute, I kept him as my son. Shiro smiled as Nantion nodded his head. Damn, my heart can't take too many surprises. He thought to himself. Sighing in relief, he started to eat his ramen while trying not to make eye contact with Lyrica since he felt like he would be killed several times from the intensity of her stare. Meanwhile, Shiro found it a little weird that the dinner table felt like a war zone, but decided to ignore it and fed Addie some food. After finishing their breakfast, the party made their way out of the hotel while Nantion followed behind them. Oh right, Lil Tion, what level are you? You never answered my question last time. Shiro asked as she was quite curious as to what level the little beggar is now. Oh, you want to know my level? I'll keep it a secret. After all, finding out things yourself is part of the fun when talking to people. Nantion smiled. Che, when did you become so cheeky, ah? Shiro clicked her tongue. Well, I wouldn't say cheeky, but I'm sure you'll be catching up to my level soon. After all, it's not even been a year and you're already level 115. Nantion pointed out with a smile as Shiro looked away. Fine, I'll find out on my own. Plus, how hard would it be? It's not like you're level 1000 now, are you? Shiro shrugged. So what's your plan for the day? Nantion asked. I'm planning to go to the church in order to tell them to stop bothering my daughter. The next step would be to wait for my sister and cousin to arrive in this city. Once they're here, I can finally get down to business since there's someone I need to save. Shiro replied. Oh, and who's that? I'll keep it a secret. After all, finding out things yourself is part of the fun when talking to people. Shiro grinned as she returned his quote right back to him. Hearing this, Nantion couldn't help but chuckle. Anyways, Aram, how are you finding the court role? It said that making spells would be easier for you, so have you made any progress yet? Shiro asked as Aram nodded. Yes, I have. It's not completely finished, but I have a working prototype. Let's just say that when I activate this spell, everyone I designate as an ally would feel weightless, while everyone else would be weighed down with multiple forces acting on their body at the same time. If their physique is weak, they'll be shredded up by this despite it being primarily a control spell. Aram explained. Now that sounds pretty handy. But if we feel weightless, wouldn't that affect our sword swings? Lyrica asked curiously. That's why I said it was working in progress. I want to make it so that the forces would be able to enhance your swings. Aram replied as Lyrica nodded her head. Makes sense. As they made their way to the church, Nantion attracted quite a few eyes as he had removed his mask while talking to Shiro. It's a bit annoying having so many eyes on us. Shiro frowned while glancing back at Nantion. Damn, why did you have to grow up to be such an eye candy, huh? Forget it. Take this, it should make things easier for you. She shook her head before handing him a ring that had the upgraded disguise skill embedded into it. Raising his eyebrows, he wondered where she managed to get such a ring and realized that everyone else had the same one. Before you ask about the origin, just know that if you try to research it, it will blow up. Shiro reminded kindly. Well, a woman's supposed to have her secrets. Nantion nodded his head before putting on the ring. Separating from the group for a while, he went to apply his disguise. Taking this moment, Lyrica quickly jogged over to Shiro. PST, Shiro, don't you find it weird? What's weird? Shiro tilted her head. Well, the fact that you're in his childhood savior's body, and he's taking it pretty nicely. True. I'll ask him, don't worry. Shiro dismissed with a smile. After all, Nantion was someone that she could trust. He knew of her identity as a monster and didn't he even attempt to kill her. No, instead, he thought about recruiting her so that she could help out the world. Even if he weren't the little beggar that she knew as a kid, she would have given Nantion some degree of trust. There was only the problem of him being a little stocky before, but that could be fixed with time. Now that she knew who he was, she was going to make sure that he goes on the right path. Nodding her head reluctantly, Lyrica sighed before walking next to Madison. After waiting for a while, Nantion soon returned with a new disguise. His face was not as handsome as before, but it was still above average in order to fit with disguises the group had put on. This time, they attracted less attention. Upon arriving at the church, Shiro was immediately greeted by the sight of several priests waiting by the front door with a smile on their faces. They welcomed everyone that wanted to go into the church while giving a few blessings to people that left. Good morning, adventurer. How may we help? The priest asked with a smile. Oh, we're here to ask a few questions. Would it be okay if we entered? Shiro replied. Of course. You're quite lucky. The head priest is free right now, so you can ask him some questions. I see, thank you. Walking inside the church, Shiro saw that it was surprisingly spacious as a large altar of sorts could be seen near the back of the church. Standing not too far from it was a man that was clearly dressed much better than the other priests who were in the church. The man had aged white hair and a rather long beard. His face was wrinkled from age, but he didn't look too old. If Shiro had to give it an age, it'll be around late 30s to mid-40s. Richard LVL 230, Saint of Asclepios. Seems like we've found the priest. Shiro smiled as they removed their disguises. She recognized the name Asclepios since the god associated with this name was the god of medicine. The moment Shiro removed the illusion she had put on Lysandra, due to the fact that she can't use any items or equipment, her presence was immediately noticed by the head priest. Ah, Miss Lysandra, you're here. He called out with an excited smile. Amen, I'm here with my mother. Lysandra nodded while keeping her expression neutral. Looking at the white-haired woman with a red-haired boy in her arms, Richard couldn't help but paused in surprise before nodding his head. While there were no similarities between the two of them, he had no choice but to accept since Lysandra had said that this woman was her mother. "I see. So you're the esteemed mother of Miss Lysandra," Richard said with a smile. "Amen. I heard that you've been quite interested in my daughter and the origin of her identity. I must say that there seemed to be a kind of misunderstanding here," Shiro replied while handing Addie to Lysandra. "What kind of misunderstanding would there be for an angel to appear in the city? All of the holy artifacts and even our bodies had a reaction to her presence. Is this not the sign of higher beings?" Richard furrowed his brows. "First, I do believe that my daughter has said that she was not religious, so the fact that you're trying to get her into religion despite this is rather rude. Second, my daughter doesn't want anything to do with the church, so if possible, it would be best to just let her level up as a normal adventurer," Shiro said while narrowing her eyes. I'm afraid that's a little difficult, you see. Some people are just born into a role that they cannot refuse." Richard shook his head. "Oh, for F***ck sake, he's one of those people, isn't he?" Shiro thought to herself with a frown. "What are you planning to do?" Nimue asked as she finally spoke up after a while of not talking. After all, she had just been observing what had been happening so far. "Well, if he's not going to listen to reason, then I'll have to go the forceful way. Though I will try my patience with him. If things go well, Lysandra will have no relation to the church despite her being an angel. If things go south, I'll probably have to fight the church. Regardless, with the age of demons and gods on the horizon, I can't let a small church hold us back," Shiro replied. Plus, she wasn't afraid to fight it out even without Nantion being here. While she is level 115, her skill set, stats, and experience made up for the gap between levels. If the man knew any better, he would opt for the safe route as a battle would cause lots of casualties. "Are you saying that my daughter is obligated to serve your church?" Shiro asked with a frown. "Not quite. I'm saying that your daughter is obligated to do something with her role as an angel, whether that be on the front lines or helping people in the backlands. Since she was chosen to be an angel, it is her duty." Richard shook his head. "Oh, if that's the case, then what do you think she should do on the backlands then? She has hardly any healing as she took the offensive route. She can't go on the front lines either since her level is not quite there yet. That's why we're allowing her to level up without our interference right now. Once she's high enough level, we'll need her to go to the front lines," Richard replied while Shiro narrowed her eyes. "Allowing? Pretty arrogant to say that you're allowing someone to level up, huh? Please don't make any rash decision, as having an angel on our side can greatly boost morale. With her on the front lines, we'll have a better chance at pushing back the demons. Right now, the assassin hero had managed to acquire us new land, but in the future, the demons would be ready for her attacks. That's why we need Miss Lysandra to be ready when that time comes. If she is helping out on the front lines, especially with the holy element that is strong against the demons, we can acquire more land for humans." Richard persuaded as Shiro only scoffed. "Do we need more land? Are humans struggling for land right now? With the dungeons around, a bunch of us are losing our life before we can even level up high enough. If anything, sign a peace treaty or just focus on protecting our borders rather than expanding. It's not like we're going to run out of land anytime soon in this world. Plus, even if we do acquire land, how are we going to protect it all? It'll only spread us out more, and at that stage, the demons can just pick us off one by one. Why do you think we've managed to survive for this long?" Shiro retorted as the priest fell silent. She was indeed correct. Humans didn't need a lot of land at this moment since they had no way to keep a hold onto that land. What about in the future then? We'll still need Miss Lysandra to protect our borders as part of the next generation. Who knows if any of the heroes will die in the future, so we need to make backup plans," Richard replied. Little did he know, borders would be the least of their worries in the future due to the coming age of demons and gods. At that point, the entire world would be dangerous and not just the demon territory. Well, you can think that all you want. Just know that my daughter wants nothing to do with the church. When she fights, she'll be fighting of her own volition and not because of an order from you," Shiro warned as she attempted to leave with the party. However, before they could, Richard tapped his staff down and a barrier was formed around them. "Do you want me to break this?" Nantion whispered over to Shiro. "No, it's fine, Lil Tion. I got this. Shiro smiled before turning towards the priest. What's the meaning of this, Priest Richard? She asked. Don't take this the wrong way. I merely want you to take this seriously. You realize that with what you're doing, you could be hindering humanity for one person's freedom. Richard reminded. What about it? Lysandra is my daughter, and as her mother, I say that she deserves all the freedom she can get. Her identity has nothing to do with this. Hell, even if she was a god rather than an angel, I'd still say that she has no obligations to help out humanity. Shiro grinned while swiping her hand at the barrier. Asterisk ping. Shattering into pieces, the priest watched in shock as Shiro turned around once more. Please wait. He called out once more. What? Do you want to hinder me once more? Shiro frowned. No. Since you're so adamant about her freedom, then I shall no longer bother you about it. However, I do want to ask why a demon is in your party. Richard asked while glancing over at Madison. As a high-level priest/saint, he could sense her demonic aura the moment she entered. While it was still weak and had some resemblances of the aura humans would have, it was still an anomaly. Emin? Oh, she's not a demon. It's just her class that makes her seem like one. Shiro replied before leaving without a second word. Activating the illusion once more, their appearances changed to what it was before they entered. Watching the party leave, Richard had a difficult expression on his face as classes that involved demons couldn't be acquired unless you were born a demon or had demon blood in your veins. However, the fact that Madison was still human-like despite this, it meant that her parents or someone down her family tree was a demon that had a child with a human. What shall we do about this, head priest? A person asked as he bowed towards Richard with respect. Try keep the news to ourselves and don't make things hard for their party. It's understandable for people to value the good of one person over their race. We don't know what they've been through nor what they have experienced, so we cannot force our ideals onto them. Just don't make things difficult for them, as that would be quite petty and unbecoming of us. We are, after all, servants of God. Richard shook his head while walking back to the altar. Our Omicron. Hearing this, the priest nodded his head. However, despite this, there were still a few priests that were very offended by Shiro's actions. Even with the order that Richard laid down, they still had their own thoughts about the matter. Some of them branded the party as heretics, while others wanted to hinder their progress and make life hard for the party. Unfortunately, neither Richard nor Shiro knew about this. If Shiro knew, she would have taken care of the priests immediately to avoid future troubles. Walking out of the church, the party made their way towards another dungeon while Lysandra had a difficult expression on her face. Are you sure we should have replied to him that way, Mom? I mean, we're probably going to go to the front lines anyways. Lysandra asked. It's fine. The fact that they think they could determine your future just because you're an angel is laughable. I'll never agree to it. Plus, they're arrogant enough to think that they're allowing us to level up. If they try to stop us, we can either knock them out or just go to another city. Shiro shrugged as Lysandra nodded her head. Anyways, let's go to a dungeon. Since me and Lysandra are sharing EXP, I'll split off to a separate dungeon so that I can get more experience. That way, it's more efficient in terms of leveling up. She suggested as the party nodded their heads. Amen. I think most of us can solo a dungeon slightly higher than our level now, so that might be the most efficient way. Of course, Sylvia might need someone with her, but at this point, I'm pretty sure she'll exhaust the boss with how much healing she can do to herself. Madison laughed. True. If anything, Chinyu's probably going to have a harder time since he's an assassin. With how many monsters there are in the dungeon, it'll be tough unless he has someone to take the aggro. Aram reminded. In that case, then should I go with him? I'm a bruiser tank that can provide DPS as well with my second form. Madison suggested since her class has 2 stages. The base stage is tank, while the second stage is pure offense. Cool. With that sorted, everyone will be soloing dungeons apart from Madison and Chinyu, who will be clearing it together. We'll do this for a day and compare it to a party run that we'll have tomorrow and see which one is faster. If the solo one is faster, we'll stick with that for a while. Shiro said with a smile. In that case then, can I join along with you, Shiro? Nantion asked with a smile. I suppose I can't have you just waiting outside by yourself. Who knows which Balza girl would take a fancy to you and try to kidnap you or something. I don't exactly want to leave the dungeon to see a fight going on. Shiro nodded her head as she partied up with Nantion. Splitting up the party, They each went their separate ways while Shiro chose a level 150 dungeon.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.